The period of German history between the conclusion of the First World War and the rise of Adolf Hitler has proven to be one of the most culturally tumultuous times in German history. This time was also the birth of German Expressionism, which was apparent in all manner of art from theater to architecture, but it is most noted and remembered within the art of filmmaking. The movies of the German Golden Age are noted for their moody atmospheres, striking sets, and commentary on human psychology. From shell shock due to the war's devastating effects, and to the ultimate uncertainty of the fate of the shaky new government, this age known as the Weimar era was also significant for another, even darker reason. The rise of anti-Semitism ran rampant in the aftermath of the war, and along with other inspirations, the German Expressionist film movement capitalized on this. Perhaps one of the best examples of rising anti-Semitism in film in the pre-Hitler period is Paul Wegener's The Golem, How He Came into the World, which was first released in 1920. The Golem, How He Came into the World was the third of director Paul Wegener's Golem movies that were made in the late teens and early 20s. Wegener himself starred as the Golem, and this particular installment was the most famous of these films. This movie was inspired by the Golem stories Wegener heard when he had traveled Prague some years before. In traditional Jewish folklore, a golem is a creature, usually in the form of a man, made out of clay and brought to life by a rabbi in order to perform specific tasks. In the folklore, the golem was generally a docile creature and was always safely controlled by his rabbi. However, in this film, the golem is portrayed as a hulking monster that is uncontrollable by his master, Rabbi Lo. The golem is portrayed as a freak of black magic and is made all the more disturbing due to the fact that a demonic ceremony gave the golem life in the first place. As the film progresses and the golem becomes more dangerous, the viewer is meant to notice just how strange and possibly damaging to German culture the dark arts and strange ways of the Jews were. These false and completely over-the-top accusations, although exaggerated for the purposes of the film, would nevertheless have further convinced Germans of the stark and seemingly insurmountable cultural differences between non-Jews, or Gentiles as they were known, and the massive Eastern European Jewish population. The Jews themselves were portrayed strangely as they went about their lives in an off-kilter world. They are depicted as dark people with dark hair and features, and wear wizard-like hats and dirty robes, which even in medieval times would not have been normal dress. From the beginning, they are shown to be outsiders. Christians, on the other hand, were portrayed as refined and tasteful people, donning the height of medieval European fashion and living in elegant dwellings. This was in stark contrast to Wegener's Jews. Five years earlier, in 1915, an American film shocked the world. Created by D.W. Griffith, one of the most popular filmmakers in the United States at the time, the Civil War epic Birth of a Nation caused quite a stir. Its obvious and flamboyant support of the Ku Klux Klan and utter scorn towards African Americans reignited a firestorm of racism against blacks that hadn't been seen since the Civil War. This film is even credited with the revival of the Klan in America. Blacks were portrayed as dangerous outsiders with evil intent, much like the Jews in the Golem were. The Klan, on the other hand, is portrayed as valiant defenders, in Griffith's mind anyway, of a way of life. The stark duality between Gentiles and the Jewish people in the Golem is almost reminiscent of the massive racial tensions in early 20th century America, and would have had a similar effect on the German psyche. There are two important symbols present near the end of the film. The first is the battle between Florian the Gentile Knight and the Golem. Florian is killed by the Golem, and upon his death assumes a Christ-like pose. The viewer is led to believe that Florian should be viewed as a martyr, as well as have the apparent barbarity of Wegener's Jews underscored by the heinous actions of their rebellious Golem. After killing Florian, the Golem goes on a rampage, destroying the ghetto and setting it aflame. In the final scene of the film, a blonde-haired Aryan child outside of the ghetto destroys the Golem. This in itself would have been an immensely poignant message to the German people of the time. It is not too hard to guess what is being hinted at here. The racial message is again very clear. When Hitler took over in 1933, the vast majority of German Expressionists from all fields fled Germany, as the Nazis labeled their art degenerate. However, Wegener did not flee. He remained in Germany and starred in several Nazi propaganda films during Hitler's regime. German Expressionist film was truly one of the greatest achievements Germany has offered to the world of film and art in general after the First World War. However, the underlying motifs in the Expressionist film The Golem, How He Came Into the World, contain some very real and disturbing statements about how some Germans viewed Jews, as well as the frazzled mental state of a country on the verge of falling apart.